already, and we are back. Episode 89 of the Leonis support. Happy Monday, everyone. We finally got a news update today, so a lot to talk about. Very excited. But before we hop into things, per usual, catch up. Weekend's over. We had a day off today, which is kind of nice. But what's going on, man? How you doing, JB?
Doing well. Trying to stay warm. It's a frosty winter wonderland up here in New England. We got hit with, I don't know, at least in my area, we got maybe 6 to 8 inches or so,
Sounds about right.
and was out snow blowing that and freezing my ass off this morning.
Yep.
But at least had the day off and got to spend that with my son. We did a little bit of gaming. He's super into Harry Potter at the moment, so we were playing the Harry Potter Lego game, and that
Awesome.
was a lot of fun. You can play two players on it, and we were enjoying that. And then we went and actually built some Legos after that. So
Oh,
it's
right
a
on.
good little father and son day for us today.
Dude, Lego is standing the test of time. That is such a cool franchise still that they've expanded into the movies and the video games, and good old fashioned Legos are still awesome. Like if I even now find like a really cool adult set, I'll look for it. It's been a couple of years, and admittedly I don't have the storage for it anymore. But I know they used to come out with those really like 500-piece models of really cool stuff, and it's impressive.
My wife, for my birthday a few years ago, got me the Lego DeLorean set, which is one of like the deluxe, like
Yep.
it's a couple thousand pieces, but Back to the Future is one of my all-time favorite movies. So
Nice.
had a lot of fun building that.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah, shout out to a couple people in chat. Xena Warrior Prince, hello on the other side of the country. And Woodstock Wins, good to see you too, man. Always appreciate you popping in. I'm sure we'll get a nice, good cast going here. I know a lot of people are pumped up for Final Fantasy V, which is the main topic of tonight. And honestly, my weekend was pretty similar to yours, so not a whole lot more to recap. Snow, slept, video games, Genshin Impact, War of the Visions. You know the drill by now. A couple chores, but nothing that I think is worth wasting anyone's time over at the moment. But yeah, today's topic lineup. Let me just briefly, we're going to talk about Final Fantasy V. 2 weeks ago, you can look for the thumbnail in the live section of my thing. We did a pretty deep dive on this already, but it's been a couple weeks. We've got some JP data. We got some new testing, whatever, and it's here. So we'll revisit some of our thoughts on Bartz, Lenna, Faris. Gilgamesh is the new unit being released tomorrow alongside his vision card, which is a little bit unique. They're not staggering that release. We're getting them both as a combined item, which I kind of like. We are going to then look at Final Fantasy V in the JP meta from our Votive stats website, so we'll kind of peek at there. And then Day of the Visions is finally coming to a close for many. The PvP news of Grand Arena, Quick Pick, and Limited Guild Battle with a very fun twist of the fourth and fifth units that we'll talk through. So hot takes as always too at the end, but really fun lineup. And we'll kick things off here with Final Fantasy V with Bartz. This was the free unit they handed out back in time, and they're giving him the MA2 and the MA3. They're giving him both, so they're catching them up, and the limit break upgrade, and that's the same for all three of these units. But yeah, how you feeling about Bart still? I mean, anything changed a couple weeks ago or through today?
I don't think so. I mean, Light is in a very good spot at the moment, and it's getting better with Hero Monts around the corner as well. So I think the timing is opportune for folks to give Bartz a spin again. There's a lot of good warrior cards that have been released, lately as well, and he frankly is getting some pretty nice upgrades. And this was actually the first 100 cost free collab unit that we have ever received in the game. So he was actually, I'd say, competitive with 100 cost units of his era.
Yep.
He was a little bit slept on, I think, at first, but I think he had some times where he showed what he could do in the meta with the follow-up attack, kind of being that first one that was the teammate follow-up attack, which was very good. So yeah, I think that he's definitely worth building, even now.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, this unit always was surprising to me how quickly he would pop off in some of the fights. I always thought of him as like a gimmicky character with the follow-up because that's often how we used him. But there were times where he'd walk up and he would just do damage that I couldn't imagine him doing. And I don't know if that's going to still happen nowadays. Again, we're not going to go super in depth on these upgrades, but they seemingly emphasized a little bit of his AoE res pen here, not only on the MA3, but also his weapon gets a bestowed 10 AoE pen. So they're certainly trying to still maintain some of that firepower. The one thing that I realized this week, compared to no, I'm not going to go into that. But yeah, I mean, even still, I kind of was down on it a couple weeks ago because I thought it was semi-redundant with the fact that he has the decrease of the AoE shred here, or the AoE resistance here, of 30%. So I always kind of thought you were eating it at two ends. Like, you didn't need the penetration because he had the imperil. I still kind of feel that way, but I at least like it a heck of a lot for the damage formula for the courage dispel ability, that now I think you're going to use this with more consistency as opposed to maybe doing some of the single target abilities. I mean, I'm trying to think glass half full here, but I just know that this ability was his big nuking one, and I just wonder how this is going to fare now that there's a lot more physical AoE wide res in the game. Even though it's got this really nice imperil and it's got the penetration on it, that new mitigation really wasn't prevalent when he was around, so I'm kind of expecting him to spam more of the courage removal ability, but we'll see how that works out. I don't have a strong opinion on it.
Yeah, so I think that's the new interesting wrinkle that we have to think about nowadays, where they have implemented physical and magical wide res to the game, and the fact that Bartz doesn't have removal for that, he's probably not going to be a primary damage dealer, or not without somebody that can actually remove that. So that kind of goes into your team building conversation. Who could you bring in that is able to maybe give him that assist and really allow him to pop off at that point? Because it's really not a lot of mitigation. I mean, he can easily get to 100 defense pen. He's got very good slash pen, especially with the cards available to him. And the area resistance is not a huge threat for him either with this ability and the penetration that they've given him. So, yeah, you have to look for those partners and kind of set them up.
Totally. No, I agree. And that's something I've noticed in the last couple of weeks fighting the Sephiroths that we have. We're used to seeing him spam his large diamond for a long period of time. And now more than ever, I'm just seeing Sleeper Sweep, just like on repeat, because it's a much smaller targeting area. And the AoE wide res that's come into the game has done something to kind of change the breakpoint on the damage formula for those. So I've always been intrigued now as the game continues to go on, seeing like the trickle-down effects of that. And I have I think this might be one of the abilities that maybe gets used more because of it.
I can definitely see that.
Yeah. But either way, I have relatively low expectations for Bartz. I think he's going to be good. I just don't know about Guild War good. Duel content? Sure. He can sneak up on the in-class match, free match, arena, all of those contents. But Guild War, we'll see. But I'll never count anything out because I think we've gotten creative and we've made some stuff work that we might have doubted in the past.
I think the thing with Bartz is like they didn't really give him too much in the way of additional survivability. They gave him a little bit, like with the magical reduction, and I think they did give him the heal back as well.
Correct.
So that's it's not nothing. Like it's decent, and he is like a courage unit. So he's got like a few tools there. He's got like some draining abilities as well. The thing that I do like is that they gave him a huge chunk of accuracy, though, like 30 accuracy.
Yep.
And does he have an accuracy passive as well that he can bring in? I think so.
It's there. It's already there. Passive. Yeah.
So, Warrior, they have some of the best cards for accuracy. With you can build around the Halloween Lucio card for get the 42% luck in there. So they've got the Love for Hiryu card that's part of this event, which gets 30 accuracy as well. So, I think that he could be, a little bit of an evade hunter potentially. So I like him for that too. I
agree with that too. And you know what? I think, hold on real quick. Just pause. We're going to work. We have this bullet point here to look at votive stats to this. Do you want to look at this live when we talk about the characters, or do you want to wait till the end and we'll look at votive stats, all of them together?
Maybe we'll just do it at the end.
Yeah.
Maybe so we're not flipping back and forth.
Totally. Nope, that's good. But we'll keep things moving along here. I mean, I kind of hyped up Lenna the last time we were talking. I still feel half decent of her. I mean, I think back when she was first released, I think Ayaka was a much closer comparison. I think that's less so nowadays. I still don't think she's amazing, and obviously there are still some deficiencies, but I think her kit right now does seemingly have like, I don't know, stuff that I would value in terms of not only the enormous amount of spirit that she's gotten, but they've done some smart AI things with her that they've made her first buff here not just a teammate buff, but a diamond buff. But it's also the protect seal, and she's got protect capabilities. So they've increased the juice of like what she can do to mitigate damage here by a fair amount. I think, like, when I just think of what you can do to seal that. I mean, I know maybe some of this, like the re-raise ability here, is not as valuable if you don't have a seal within the team. So maybe this component of her is kind of something maybe you toggle off as you sort of tinker with the team. But overall, like, I still think the healing is kind of valuable, and you get that mid-fight 20% increase of damage. Like, that can certainly tip the fight at a certain point. And overall, like, I think her survivability, they've beefed up in a couple different ways. I mean, they gave her a honeycomb here for physical damage. They gave her the AoE res. Even her buff now has the 30% damage reduction for 3 hits. Like, there's a couple things there that I'm not sleeping on this unit like I was upon her initial release.
They've definitely have shored up her survivability a little bit. I think, that she was very one-shottable before, but they have given her that passive physical honeycomb barrier as part of her mastery, which is super nice to have. Starts out at range 3 and beyond, so it goes from 10 up to 40% potency, which is really nice, because she's already, I think, fairly strong against magical damage. Like, she has a lot of her kit is dedicated towards that with the spirit buff, and she has good innate magic resistance. She has decent area resistance.
Yep.
So I think that's going to help her enough to not get completely blown off the map, especially when you combine it with that 3-hit damage mitigation that she gets as part of her AoE buff. So, I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. We're kind of liking the spirit angle a little bit, just because of the power creep on magic res penetration. Some of the recent magic damage dealers are a little bit lighter on spirit penetration. So I think that this can be potentially a valuable buff. And it goes to a 4-turn duration, which I like. She does have Emerald Echo, which you can make it even 5-turn.
Right.
So the thing that I do like about the LB and getting a second cast of it is that in the past, like, you were kind of living and dying by, like, having to get the cast time reduction down in order for her to use her main heal after this was gone. Having a second cast of this, maybe you have a little bit more freedom to not use that, and maybe use Emerald Echo, maybe use something else. But cast time is still definitely a weakness for this unit, and unfortunately, they didn't shore that up at all.
No, they didn't. I will say, I think the game is slightly more forgiving at the moment with the cast times. I remember back, rewinding the clock, this was a game changer because of Bridal Elia and how prevalent she was with that like 3-person jamming thrust that would cancel abilities. So we were hypersensitive to cast times because it was so easy to interrupt. I don't really think there's any units at the moment that have that same capability to really disrupt like Bridal Elia did. And so while sure you still have the turn order issue that she can use it quick enough, I don't think it's the same downside that it was upon release, where you literally just couldn't heal because it would get canceled. Like, that was an automatic L. Like, you just can't, it's unacceptable.
Right. I think so. Yeah, there's a little bit more leeway there, but still, I think that it's hard to bring it even down to a 1-tick unless you're using all sources.
Right.
So you still are a little bit beholden, I think, to the passive, and even like the Trials of Reckoning item that gets her the additional cast time reduction she needs.
I would agree with that too, absolutely. But we'll go on to Faris here, who also getting some really good upgrades. I initially was not terribly happy with these, but I think they're still relatively good. They really went all in on like the debuff weakening angle for her, they did still lean into some of the AoE resistance. And although at first in my head I'm like, well, they're penetrating AoE resistance a lot nowadays, I wish they went with the wide res mitigation instead for her. They've done a couple things in her kit with the debuff weakening, number one, just to make sure that she can't get crushed as easily, but even for herself, and it's really kind of boom or bust on the limit break, but this limit break is a pretty significant upgrade for the fact that it increases enemy, or I'm sorry, it decreases enemy penetration by 30%. So you are still maintaining that stat. I do, again, also wonder, is my perception of her inflated because of how often we were running her with Summer Glaciella, that I don't think you're going to run that same combo nowadays? And so am I thinking of that synergy a little bit too much in terms of her survivability with the physical damage aura and the accuracy buff that she was giving, and obviously the healing and sustain they gave each other to kind of be a cohesive unit? I still think these are great upgrades, though. I'm very impressed with what they did for the self buff. I'm sorry, the teammate buff that they given it a barrier, so it won't repeat. But yeah, I mean, I'll tinker this unit again. I have low hopes, but I'll give her a run.
Yeah, I like the upgrades as well. I think out of all the units, I think I like this one the best. It's probably between her and Bartz, but I would maybe give Faris the slight edge. Just fixing the AI issue of this buff alone is massive, and you know, you mentioned running her with Summer Glaciella to kind of shore up the physical side for her, and this barrier helps her do that and maybe not be so beholden to a tank. She doesn't have any courage or re-raise, so it's just the barrier here. It's the extreme area resistance, and then she does have a protect and shell buff as well. So that's essentially what she's relying on, and then kind of her mid-fight healing that she's able to do. I do really like the debuff weakening that they've given her a huge chunk of it. 30% is a huge amount to
among the highest, I think.
Yeah. So Red Mage has some of the best vision cards to enhance that as well. So, you know, she should be able to very easily, you know, with the Summer Glaciella card alone, get up over 50%. So that's pretty big for anybody that's trying to debuff her healing power to kind of shut down her healing.
Yep.
So I like it from that standpoint as well. I wish, like, on the limit burst, maybe they gave her like an AP restore or something, because they didn't lower the AP cost of it. And AP is a little bit of a problem area for this unit. She does have, like, on her buffs, the AP consumption down, but really that's about it. So that's kind of the one area that I wish they had addressed a little bit more. Overall, though, I think that she's in a decent spot. I think, to be honest, all three units have like a niche area that I think that they can fill into. None of them are going to be a carry unit, or if you didn't have them before, are worth pulling by, you know, now and building from scratch.
Yep.
But for the veterans that have already built them, I think that you can, you know, spot them in on certain, as like a supportive unit, or as a, you know, filling a certain need for your team, and they'll be able to perform.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And it's nice to have a water unit too, because I know as of late, water's just kind of been Exia, boom or bust. We have not even really seen Joom back in play, and so who knows? I doubt even Faris might crack that, but maybe she will. And even Nickel. I mean, these are still quality units. I don't think any of these units are bad that are on the top row here, but even Kadaj is, like, I don't think is necessarily bad. But it's nice to get Faris. At least it's another alternative, because even some of these units like Young Eld and Water Veritas have kind of subsided a bit. And it'd be nice to kind of get another water unit in there to play with, particularly from the Red Mage angle, which I think adds some dimensionality to Faris.
Definitely.
Yep. But that's basically the recap. We didn't want to go super deep. Again, we already had a couple weeks ago, but we'll find out tomorrow anyway exactly the impact of them nonetheless. But we do have a brand new unit being introduced, and it's Gilgamesh, the original, like, Final Fantasy V. Gilgamesh that everyone knows and loves and has become kind of a fan favorite. And I think this unit has aged well from a couple weeks ago when we talked about him. He's a spear-oriented fire unit. I know fire seems to have gotten a lot of units overall, but I don't think we see a lot of fire units in general. It's really still kind of Sephiroth carrying that element, despite the fact that they had gotten some love with units like Crimson Wizard. Obviously, Summer Resnick, but she's more of a rainbow support in that area. But even the older fire units obviously have kind of just gone. So I'm excited to get him. But yeah, I mean, do you like this unit? I mean, are you? I don't know. What are you thinking about of him?
So I know when we talked about him a couple of weeks ago, like we generally liked what he brought to the table and we thought there was value there. It was just hard to give too much of a general recommendation, just kind of based on what we knew was coming with Mont and ExDeath, at that time when we looked at it. I think that he has aged better, especially in light of the latest JP unit that's coming in was another ice unit.
Yep.
Um, so I think though that it's kind of going to be a little bit like a Crimson Wizard situation where you have a quality unit that unfortunately is limited time. And a lot of people are already looking past him towards ExDeath and towards Mont. So the timing isn't exactly opportune. I think though that for the people that are able to pull him, I think they're going to get some good use out of him. So yeah, we can kind of take a deeper look at the kit here.
Yeah.
Um, Go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say, my big takeaway is the fact that he's multi-dimensional and how he wants to do damage to you. He is a spear unit, but he is more than that. He does have a pretty large slash crush ability here that's got an increased hit chance. It's got some healing power. It's got a poison capability on it. So not only is it status ailment oriented, but it's a totally different kind of attack that this innate crush actually could dish out some decent damage because it's a smaller, more concentrated AoE. But he also does have the follow-up attack in his kit that also has the unit res imperil or penetration on it. Or no, it isn't apparel. It's a 50% apparel for just that cast. So it's another way, like you go from pierce damage to slash damage to now a follow-up attack. And he does have a couple, like, the diamond, the smaller AoE. Technically, this is like another different kind of cross shape. I don't love the cast time on this ability. We've talked about that before, but he does have enough in the kit in terms of, like, damage removal things too, that this is the removal of Protect 2.0. His limit break here is a physical barrier break. It's also a nice little like burst for himself of like haste, protect, and shell to kind of keep the momentum going in the mid fight. I know one of the things we've noticed is that sure you can get hasted at the start of the fight, but it's very easily to dispel that on the first exchange of blows. Getting a haste in the mid fight, and this has been true for a while, whether it was I think Perrine was one, and Winged Stern, the light unit, that when you get that haste, Catone, the Dark Fist Catone, when you get that haste in the mid fight, a lot of times the dispel is already worn off on the enemy team, or maybe you sealed it from your own team, which is kind of that new mechanic nowadays. I don't know if you're going to use Gilgamesh in any of those teams, quite frankly, but overall, really cool unit. I'll pause there because I don't want to talk about everything.
I think he's pretty well rounded, from what he brings to the fight. He's got a bevy of different kind of, damage mitigation, at his disposal with the barrier and the debuff weakening, and he's got a pretty sizable amount of area resistance innately that, you can build off of with the Pierce cards. So, I think he's similar to Faris in that regard. Maybe not quite on her level as much as she can get, but, not too far off. He can get very high with his, defense penetration as well. He's got some accuracy that he can bring in, and have that 80% defense pen, which is really nice.
Pretty cool.
And, he's got a pretty decent amount of HP, like the Modern Bruisers. He's got the draining attacks that can kind of help top him off. There isn't nearly as much pierce resistance in the game, as there was earlier in the year. I think that one of the difficult things for this unit, though, is that the Hero Mont unit is going to be coming in. So I think that he's going to fall into maybe like an attacker type category. Probably not somebody you're going to be able to throw up on defense until he gets maybe like a magical spear unit next to him that can kind of help, against that, physical, damage reduction weakness. So Overall, though, I like him. I think that he can cover, several different things for you in the meta, and you can build him high accuracy against those evade units. He's fire, so he naturally is going to be good against Jaden and Maevia for that long range, missile damage game. And yeah, I think that with Ramada that can help kind of against his water weakness too. So I like that pairing.
Yep.
So overall, I think he's solid, but probably just not a top meta unit.
No, totally. And they've, given him a lot of AoE res pen too, because we saw on his main kit it's 3 AoE targeting abilities. So he's got the 40 on this passive. His weapon gives him another 20 here. AP management, kind of nice that he gets the 15% reduction. And they definitely are like leaning into the crit damage angle here too. I mean, I think his dexterity at the time of release was the highest in the game, base dexterity. That did get immediately replaced by Maevia. I think she's the new highest base, but still, they absolutely are leaning into like that crit damage angle here too. So Pierce does have a lot of crit damage cards. I do appreciate that for the follow-up attack of his as well, where we've kind of seen this game back and forth of like crit damage and crit evade, and that's a major factor in the follow-up damage. Admittedly, it could get dispelled with Summer Resnick being around as often as she is, so it's not something I have a high amount of hope for, but it's still nice that it's kind of an X factor that he can have there to also hit you with. The commander effect, this might, I think, be one of the more weaker commander things that I've seen so far, if only because it's only for the job-based stuff. There's no element buffs for mono fire. It is for dual. That being said, it is 6 different attributes here. You're talking about initial AP and accuracy and acquired AP, spirit, chain, and crit evade. And his buff, and I think this is where I end up weighting it a little bit. It's very much Pierce heavy here, where it's the 25 Pierce attack. Sure, the 25% HP is kind of nice. That should be rather substantial with these newer units. And the crit evade of 30 certainly is also nice, but I don't think this ability is nearly the same X factor that some of the others have been. And these stats, honestly, are very good stats, and you add the 6 of them up. But I see less usages of this commander upside than some of the other commanders that I've seen.
I would agree with that.
From just a pulling perspective, because some units would say, hey, pull it, because that commander ability is great. I don't think I would say that for this unit to 140 him so you can get this commander ability. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I do like some of the things that are in here, especially like the 15 accuracy is really nice. And the 25% HP is pretty nice as well from the actual buff. That one at least is universal with the crit evasion, but 100% agree that the Pierce attack is pretty niche for a black mage or a greatsword team, if not usable at all. So
right.
I don't necessarily love that part of it, and then especially like even if you consider him as a spear commander and kind of take advantage of all the effects, he's probably going to be one of the units you're going to want to use on that team as being the latest and greatest spear unit. So
yep.
You can't even get that kind of upside from it.
Exactly. No, absolutely agreed. And that's kind of how I'm thinking of this unit. It is still in the Pierce angle. Not to jump ahead too much, but we'll take a peek at his vision card as well, and that'll kind of enlighten, I think, some of the groundwork that they're laying for him as a unit. This is, I think, one of the first cards that have had 5 jobs on it. Am I misremembering that, or is that true?
It's the first one.
Yeah, so there's a slew of different groupings, which is actually kind of cool because, again, the motif of this unit was that he was like a jack of all trades and they had one of every kind of weapon. So the fact that he can kind of jive with a whole bunch of weapon classes, they clearly are trying to lean into that concept of him without just making him like I can equip every weapon, literally kind of unit. So this card, though, it is Pierce attack on it, too. So, again, very much oriented for that angle. Because I don't think this card's an amazing card outside of that Pierce team. The 24% area res, while the highest you can get at the moment, is replicatable in a variety of other cards. The 30% chain res, honestly, is kind of valuable against evade teams, but we've talked about this. That's like the 8th priority when you're building a team, is thinking about what kind of chain resistance you have. So although it's cool and it will be valuable to a degree, I don't think it's like a must pull because of that. And the crit damage does kind of lean into that angle I was mentioning earlier. It's still an excellent card, but very much Gilgamesh oriented and spear oriented, quite frankly, because I don't see a lot of upside of this card outside of that relative to others.
I think so. Like if I'm building a katana team or a book team or so, or an axe team, probably not going to be my first choice here. With the pierce attack on there. But yeah, I do like the card overall, especially the bestowed. I think with the 15 accuracy, I've appreciated those more recently in this power creep evasion era that we're in. And it does have the 3 agility there on the base stats. So overall, I think it's if you're interested in Pierce, especially, I would grab this card. But outside of that, you can probably let it go.
I agree. I agree. But I think that's everything that I wanted to mention about him. Obviously, there are still things to unpack in terms of what he does for his survivability and increasing enemy or decreasing enemy AoE res penetration. Like there's a lot that's built into this kit that we still haven't touched that I think is gonna prove its worth once he's introduced. I personally, I said this weeks ago, I'm a spear lover, so I realized that when Ramada dropped, where I said I was not going to pull her, and I really did not need to. But the morning came, and I woke up, and I'm like, dude, I literally love Pierce so much. I have to pull this unit. And once it was her, and I realized that, I saw Gilgamesh. I'm like, I just got to do it. So I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
It's that thing where they've just been niche or like under the radar, and it's fun to kind of show how those teams can work. So I kind of I feel the same way. But Ramada and him are definitely like peanut butter and jelly. Their
Oh
kits
yeah.
go together and are made for each other. Much like many of the other twosomes that we've seen, like Sodali and Exia and Riku and Venera.
Yep.
Those two units are perfect matches in terms of the debuffs and things that they bring for each other. But Gilgamesh himself, I think, you kind of sum him up as just being very versatile and all the things that he does, and I think that's probably his best asset.
Yeah, versatility. And if I could leave anyone with the lasting impression, I think these passives directly speak to that. Obviously, you're going to keep this main one on 100% of the time, but you can choose 2 different defense pen passives. One of them is the accuracy, one is the attack percent. But even the agility percent one here, when you talk about flexing his turn order potential, there's so many different things you can pick from here to like, do you want the extra damage, or do you want the accuracy? Do you want the agility, or do you even want the bulk? Maybe. Like if you want to go, I wouldn't recommend this. This is my least favorite passive, but like that there's worse passives in the game than that. Yeah,
I think for the most part, I'm probably sticking with the agility or the accuracy defense pen.
same.
But overall, yeah, it's definitely he's got some other ones that are definitely in the conversation. Depending on what you're going for.
Yep, no, totally. But I think that's everything we really wanted to go through with him. We did want to pivot to look at the votive stats to see how these units are doing in JP overall. So I did kind of preload some of these screens, and so we'll look at Bartz here. I honestly, when I personally look for some of these stats, I know that there's a fair amount of bias in the JP stats. Their Guild War system has different levels of competition than ours do. They have zero foresight whatsoever. So a lot of times these pick rates and characters they pull are the results of them having no window at all. Maybe being a prisoner of the moment, maybe having some sunk cost fallacy where you're trying to make a unit work that you've invested in. And then even past that, JP has just like different tendencies of building and whatnot. So these aren't 100% true, but they're nice to get a couple takeaways from. I know when I look for things, I typically will focus on top 10, but that, again, is not the end of the story. It's usually a few layers of the onion is still peeled back. The unfortunate bad news I have for everybody here is that Bartz was not used at all yesterday or the day before in top 10 or the day before that. So for however good that upgrade was, I don't think it's making any waves at the top end of the game.
Yeah, I mean you can even see it in the graphs above. That's kind of where he's living.
Yeah.
So like there's a few people using him in the top 100, but nobody really in the top 25 is using him. So I think that speaks probably to there is a lot of magic going on at the moment, and if it's not magic, it's Mont who's going to shut down a lot of physicals. So I don't know if neither of those are really the best time for this unit to really show what he can do. Especially as kind of more of a niche play at this point. So
Totally.
I'm not terribly surprised to see that.
No, same. And one other asterisk, just to throw out there, I tend to look at attack teams more so than the defense teams. Defense is typically a better indication of how strong something is because it's usually an unbiased look of like you can't pick who attacks you. So you have to put up a defense that's like the best against a variety of things. But attack teams at least means that like it's playable. Just because it's not the best doesn't mean it's not playable. You can still have a great character. Like Evade right now is a great offensive team, but I don't think anyone would run 30 Evade teams on defense. Like there's a strategy to why you pick something on defense or offense. And so I tend to look at attack just because I like to see if a unit is used at all. Whereas defense is more an indication of like walls even, which we see, or like just general building. So some extra
Yeah.
context there, but Lenna up next in the top 50. Top 10, she had one fan. They didn't get any stars, but one person wanted to give her a run in a mono win team. At least yesterday, the day before, that one person got 3 stars against, I don't even know who's running. A Shrek ExDeath team, I would think. The green and dark there. So at least someone is a fan in the top 10. I personally liked her, again, from the angle of the staff red mage in particular, that it just goes so well with Shrek and that pairing. Obviously, not a ton of utilization. There's probably other better supports. You could even throw Summer Resnick in there and get some better upside. And obviously, Lucille is far superior, but at least we're seeing her face here once, which is kind of nice.
The thing with this unit is she wasn't well received from day one,
You're right.
essentially in JP or in GL. So, the amount of people that have actually built up this unit to even be able to use it is probably pretty small. I think there's opportunity. If you did build her, I actually think against this team, I think that she could show what she could do. Maybe with them as well. Obviously this guy seems to like that combo, but
Yeah.
she is part of that black mage group, and all the cards will work with them.
Absolutely. And the last one here is Faris. And so at least in the top 10, unfortunately did not get any use either. Again, not terribly unsurprising. And you have to figure this way too, that like there's new shiny units and everyone just plays on power creep too. Not everyone's playing for the love of the character. That's why when I see these upgrades, I do kind of think of the dual game mode where there's not that there's less on the line, but you can have more fun in arena and just throw units that you might normally play. Obviously, free match, you can throw whatever you want out there. But even modes like class match and quick pick, like unless you're really gunning for the absolute top ranks, you can have a little fun in those modes because they're temporary. There's no like collaborative nature to it. It's just whatever you want and just having fun with it. So like unfortunately Guild War does not seem to be the effective range of where they're playing in the top 10, but top 50 she got some fans. So
Even at that though, not really doing all that well. 3
no.
stars at most.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that's a sign of again, I'm not surprised because the strength of this unit is not against mages who are sending unit attacks like Shrek and ExDeath. Those units are going to absolutely blast her off the map and probably one-shot her. So there's not a good opportunity to play her at the moment. But if a more physical heavy meta comes in, maybe if a fire meta comes in, or a significant red mage unit gets released, then maybe this unit can start to get a little bit more play.
Definitely. And before we hop into Gilgamesh, Tiki Master here has a comment that I think is a good one that we could probably talk about a little bit here. That their comment is, I think data using only the top end in a game like Wotiv is a bit skewed. You usually have to use broader metrics to generally gauge how good something is. I actually like mostly agree with this, but the thing with War of the Visions is that, how can I say this? The game has gone to a point where even outside of the top 10, there's so many other factors that influence whether or not you win and lose a fight other than just the characters. honestly, 90% of the reason why people lose is because they don't know what toggles to turn off. And so their AI is completely just like wrong in terms of how turn order goes and how fast units are, how they get spaced. Then you bring in like Esper nodes and then the vision card availability and are they reincarnated or
Trust
not?
stone setups.
Trust stones, right? People don't even use trust stones in many times in the very casual ranks. And so my answer for most of the casual play is that realistically, you can probably use any unit, and as long as you're using that unit well, you'll likely still beat everyone because you're doing all the right things and they're doing all the wrong things. They're not looking at their AI, they're not looking at their toggles, they're not looking at their trust stones. But if you are, in the very casual play, you can basically, I would say, make most units work. And so that's why we have to kind of go to the top end because there's actually some more, at least consistency of the sample size of like what they get played against. I don't know if I'm alone in thinking that. Yeah.
I would agree with that. I think once you get outside the top 50, you're not getting like the what the characters can actually do in a lot of cases, at least on a broad scale, and for all the reasons that you were just talking about. I think in the past, when the game was more competitive across the top 100, maybe you could say a little bit differently. Like maybe some people were actually finding some hidden gems or things like that. I don't think that's really the going on these days because once you get outside of the top 50 or top 100, people just aren't really caring.
They
They're
don't
very
care.
casual.
Right.
They're not setting their teams. They're not setting their toggles. They're not changing up anything. So you're not really getting a good gauge of performance about really anything, at that point.
Right. No, that's why I've always been really particular when someone says like, "Oh, I've been running this and it works." My response has always been like, "I'm glad it works where you are. I'm not going to deny the fact that you have results, but like that quantify, I'm glad it's working for where you like how you're playing or where you're playing. But like when you look at it from a numbers perspective or just like a stress test perspective, obviously there's some more definitive answers that we have.
Yep.
Yeah. One second. Just catch up on your comments. This is a good debate. Good comments in the chat, guys. I'm appreciating this. But no, yeah, we'll keep this moving along if you want, unless want to keep going. But Gilgamesh is obviously the next on the block, and one of the things that we do eyeball is the pick rate or the utilization rate of a unit. I know right now on global, like Venera is kind of at like a 10%, maybe a little bit higher pick rate. Looks like Gilgamesh is roughly similar, which kind of nice to be honest. I mean, everyone was super, super, super hyped for the Evade girls, and the fact
It's
that
even a lot higher on defense.
yeah, is it really? Oh, hold on, let me. No,
Or
no,
about
no.
the same,
Is it?
or a little bit less. Okay.
Oh, it varies. It peaks and valleys. Regardless, I mean, pretty decent, I think, considering it's a limited collab unit. That being said, this is also, again, the bias of JP. When they got Gilgamesh, I don't think they knew about ExDeath. And when they didn't know about ExDeath, they didn't know about Mott, and they didn't know about Rosaluna. So a lot of people pulling Gilgamesh didn't have all of that foresight. It might be these people that pulled on the brand new unit in the collab not knowing what else is coming. I don't know how true that is, but I know that is something that like I think about in the first week of the results, if you know what I mean.
I think that the trend line here, though, is a positive sign for
Right.
the quality of the unit because you can see it's going straight up there. That's a very, he's catching on, as a unit. People are finding his value in the meta and deploying him. So that I think is a very good sign for him.
Definitely. A quick pause just to answer Freya's question about Final Fantasy V vision cards. We talked about it a couple weeks ago, but good to reemphasize now that it's back. There's the Sildra vision card and the, what's the other one? Hear You. To me, I think we decided Hear You was passable. It's a good card. It's passable, though, potentially. I personally love Sildra, though. I think that's a great vision card, and I think that's a great Esper also. There's a lot of good things on both those. It's hard to say must pull, but that's a definite thumbs up that, yes, that's still a really good one to get.
I think the value of Hear You comes in like the crossover potential. Like I think if you look at Greatsword in a vacuum, there's other accuracy cards that they have access to. Same thing with, the other group. I think Warrior and Knights maybe are on that card as well. and all have, accuracy or luck cards at their disposal. But I think the value comes in, okay, who am I actually going to be pairing those groups together? So, that's what you have to ask yourself. Are you that type of player?
Right. Nope, totally agreed. Hopefully that answers the question. But yeah, for Gilgamesh, we did want to kind of peek to it, like the skew, and it looks pretty heavy on the top three teams, which is also reassuring. Because I know JP, a little bit different, or same or different than us, their top two guilds are really like the most competitive. There's a very steep drop off, even after the number one guild, very steep drop off. So the fact that you're seeing at least a little bit of utilization there on offense, I don't know if defense, I doubt it, quite frankly. No, apparently
Got a
apparently
little wall going.
apparently Froze really liked them. So again, that's also good to see. In terms of team building, Mono Fire certainly it looks to be one of the more popular iterations, but he's very versatile. That I do like these second teams too. I have like the fact that Dagger and Ninja Blade have some great vision card overlap with Spear historically, but even him, obviously in a Ramada team, is very sound. Also, I'm personally going for this third one as my first team to play with on day one, but it's cool to see the other options there too.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Like even that team with Sephiroth and Ramana looks pretty cool too.
Yeah,
So there's great overlap with Katana and with Spear as well. I'm eyeing that Exia team too. I like the Devout and Katana. Like they're I mean Devout and Spear overlap. There's a few cards that they share. So yeah, looks like a fun unit. There's definitely a few different teams. I think probably the most viable are going to be those top three. Um,
I agree.
but yeah, I like him quite a bit.
No, seemingly pretty good. And one of the things that we do kind of look for as a jumping off point is the number of stars. It doesn't need 6 stars. That's completely misunderstood in terms of how people should play Guild War. But you should look to see 3 or higher, because at least 3 or higher typically means you're clearing fresh teams. There's a filter for this, so you can technically see that, but actually probably should. But the other option is if you're like scrapping teams, you should still aim to get like 2 units on an open team already and maybe pick off a unit on a second. Regardless, 3's a pretty decent benchmark. So if I see teams that are averaging above 3, and for the most part these seem to be, that's usually a relatively decent sign. And
I
yes,
think so.
the colors do mean this is the variation of elements that they beat. So decently well rounded. I mean, it's beating obviously a lot of Shrek ExDeath, which is a very popular combo up there, but even the light and lightning seemingly pretty good too. Which I'm wondering what this light element is. Who is being used that this team's beating light?
That would be like Mon Cloud,
Yeah,
probably
prob
for the most part.
actually, we can look. This is one of the new capabilities here. Just eyeballing it. There's a Yuna and a Mont. Uh, I expected more Monts. There's a Thancred team. Okay. All right. Yuna in general, though, in Cloud. Obviously, we know it's going to be some combination of those four, most likely.
Yep.
Cool. Anything else you wanted to poke around here in Gilgamesh on the stats?
I don't think so. I think that, like I said, that trend line tells me a lot about kind of his adoption rate. And, obviously, if he wasn't good, then the line would probably be going the other way. So I do think that shows that, he's proving his value for the people that were able to pull him.
Yeah. Nope. Completely agreed. Okay. No, we'll pivot there, though, to Day of the Visions, which I think today is the official day at which you would have all of the shards to unlock a free pick or free pull of like select a vision card or units. And so we figured we'd kind of look at some of the units, some of the vision cards, which ones we highly recommend, overall opinion of the Day of the Visions in general. We can kick things off with the units here if you want, just to say like any specific recommendations for units. It unfortunately is a hard stop. Is it up to Exia? Do you remember?
No, it goes up to Shurika.
Oh, that's right. Oh God, I forgot how old this was. Yeah, I mean, to me, my top picks are still the same as like what the fifth anniversary was. To me, it has to be, if you don't have them already, Shrek, Gilgamesh, or Lucille. That trio. If you don't have one of those three, if you don't have all three of those units, they should immediately be top priority.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think some
And
debate after that.
yeah, I think after those three, I would probably look at either the only other next gen units available at that point are going to be Joom and Lotus Mage Fina as far as 100 cost units. And then I think if you go into like the 70 cost, no, none of the like Lilith isn't in there, so you're back to like Bronwell and Gernsback. So yeah, I think that if you already have all of those units, then you can at that point you either get a vision card or you go for shards. So
Yeah,
I wouldn't bother like grabbing an old gen unit with that. I would get a vision card or shards with it.
me too. I've already been. I'm in that boat. Obviously, I already had all these units, so I've actually been using my Day of the Vision tokens for shards for these units, so I can further reincarnate them. I actually think I was able to max reincarnate my Shreka, top her off that little extra like 30 or 40 ranks, whatever it was, to get her to max because of this. But you also do have the cards, and this is a tough one because how can you like just make a list of top five cards? I mean, you can make a top 10 very easily, but even then, the cards more than anything in the game are account specific. That it really depends on what you have because the job based vision cards, you need to have the right units to line them up. I know we have a couple favorites, but I know some of them are rather old, so maybe you have them already. Was there anything that you thought of that like immediately sprang to mind for like a card that you had when you came up with the topic, or no?
I mean, I think in general, like people are probably going to want to look at like the Dark Espers first.
Absolutely.
And then beyond the Dark Espers, you would then look at Espers themselves. So like in the Dark Esper list, like the more recent ones that have been released are like, Dark Titan and Dark Siren, Dark Shiva. Those are the most recent three. And then as far as like regular Espers, you have Garuda on there and you have Orochi, who I think are going to be top picks. Chariot is also on there as well. Um, so I think those, probably those six are probably going to be the highly targeted ones for most people. Then, beyond the Espers, you can go into like normal cards, and then you have stuff like at that point, it just kind of depends on what team you're trying to build.
Right.
I would say that, obviously we like certain statistics for like primary slots, like area resistance and unit resistance, agility. Those are still coveted stats in your primary slots, but some people might just be looking for a certain card to fill out their team.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would agree with that. The Dark Espers would be priority one. Then other Espers in general would be priority two. And then the third is really account specific for what card do you need to really run the
Yeah.
team that's optimal for you, which is more specific than we can get into.
Garuda is a great one. Garuda and Orochi both, I think, they would rival, I think, a Dark Esper choice for me just because of how impactful not only the Espers have been, but all the very, very good cards as well.
You said Orochi and Garuda? Yeah, Orochi's gross. This Esper is exceptional. I mean, it's more than just the 16 agility because you get the extra 4 from the board. So you're talking a 20 agility, the innate Kurtz res, the magic res pen. You have the didn't it was cast time reduction? I could have sworn it did. Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
cast time reduction here, like healing power. This is such a great Esper for a variety of units that this is. If you don't have this Esper, you really should look into getting it.
Yeah. Great card for Red Mage and Black Mage as well.
Yep, absolutely. But did you like the Day of the Visions? They've come out with a second round of it now. We don't have it yet, but in JP they started a couple weeks ago a new one where they expanded the pool. But what about the last couple of months? Do you think this is like a successful new wrinkle in the game? What do you think? Pros and cons of it?
I think in terms of like disincentivizing people not to try to like abuse the um, comeback player rewards, I don't think that it's enough to do that.
Yep.
for folks that are just logging in every day and playing the game, I think it's fine. I wish that it didn't take, this amount of time though to get one card or one unit. That is, I think, even as it is, I think that they could cut that time down. Maybe cut it down to like 3 or 4 months at the most. Like what has it even been at this point? Has it been like
At least 4 months.
okay? So maybe make it like 2 to 3 months instead of like 4 to 5
At
months.
least, because Shrek is the last unit on there, so think however long ago. It's a
Right.
long time ago.
She came out in September, so yeah,
Yeah,
4 months.
yeah. No, I agree. I mean, it's a great endeavor. I agree. I don't think it did anything to curtail the people abusing the system of leaving for a certain period of time. And I've always been of the opinion that they should make the units and the vision cards more accessible to get. Because just because you get the unit doesn't mean you can use the unit. That's one of the, I think, downsides of this game. There's a lot of other games where you can get the unit and they can be usable at a relatively quick state. And I play a bunch of other gachas like Octopath Traveler and Nikkei and Genshin Impact. And obviously there's upward building that you do for those units, but they have things that can very quickly ramp those units up over time. And we're the complete opposite. And to me, like, sure, you get the unit, but now you got to go ahead and get like 1,600 shards for them, and all the leveling and all the job points and all, like, there's so much that goes into actually getting them there that I would prefer them to make it to expedite this so that people can get the unit quicker. Throw them in the barracks for 4 months rather than wait 4 months to get the unit. Like, it should be get the vision card so you can farm the hard quests for 4 months to get it to max. Just get people the stuff first. Let them grind it over time if that's the way you're going to go about it. Yeah.
I agree with that. And Logi in the chat confirmed it's 11 day of the vision, so just about four months total. I would definitely look at maybe cutting that down to a 3 month cycle so that we're getting either 4 units or 4 vision cards over the course of 1 year of the game. I think the other like small perks that on the actual day of the visions that we get like a 10 pull is in there. You get like triple hard quests as well. You get like some Visior for completing the mission. So those perks like a few days a month I think is pretty good too. I just think that the amount of time we've been saving for this, it's I think it just should be a little bit shorter.
I would
Would be my
agree.
main feedback.
Me too. Me too. I will say I think we're slightly biased by how generous the fifth anniversary was, because I think everyone mostly caught up that was already regular playing the game from like what this offered in terms of Day of the Visions.
Mhm.
Maybe not the vision card angle, but certainly the unit acquisition angle. And so I think if we didn't have that fifth anniversary, people would be a lot happier for today that you could finally get your Lucille or finally get your Shrek that maybe was elusive for so long. And I don't think you're getting that same dopamine hit because you probably already got it from the fifth anniversary.
Vision cards are a big part of it, though. So, I mean, if you
Absolutely.
can grab like a key vision card for the team, or maybe at a team that you're looking at with, ExDeath or Mont coming into the fold soon, um, it's better than nothing.
No, right. At the end of the day, it's free. I mean, I think it's a great addition to the game. I just think it can be more impactful without trading a whole lot.
Yeah.
Totally. But no, we do still have other news for the game, and a lot of this is exciting because it's kind of new. I mean, PvP wise, Grand Arena is starting tomorrow. Today is our mock day that we're going through, and this Grand Arena is very different than last time. It's not 5v5 this time, it's back to 3v3, but there is a cost limit put onto it of 270, and they've brought back in a map that we've seen before. It's Mountain Road 2. This is the new map, and this is kind of a fun map in the fact that there is kind of a hard divider here on this sixth row where your slot one unit is very much like segregated from the other two units. But these other two units only one space away. So a lot of interesting things you can do with these two units. Movement wise, there's some pretty like hard set choke points, but obviously movement. I'm sorry, units that have good jump can certainly get by a lot quicker. This is a very fun map. I think personally, I am so intrigued to see the teams people come up with, though, because I am still not sure what's the best team for this game mode this week. I don't know how much thought you put into it.
The map effect is really unlike anything that we've ever seen before as well. I don't know if you looked at it, but essentially they're inversing the element wheel.
Yes. Yes.
So ice units are now, weak against wind and strong against fire,
Yep.
for example. And earth units are now strong against winds, but weak against lightning units. So this is completely flipping, how we understand the game on its head. And, if you have to think completely differently, just because of that fact. So they become 25% weak against their strong elements and 25% strong against their weak element.
I think it's more than that if I'm going off of if this is true, because this has upwards of 35 and 45%. Um,
Well, if you think about your weakness, you're starting out from a minus 20, right? In a lot of cases,
you're right.
either 20 or 10,
You're right.
depends on the unit. But
Yeah.
and then 35% the other way.
Yep. So it does equalize, which I like. That was one thing that I noticed last time. It was very easy just to set up a mono team, which, to be fair, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I did it. Set up a mono team and just go hunt the other weakness teams and just farm points off them, which nothing wrong with that, but it does kind of make the game mode less engaging if you give people that option, so they're not making it as easy to do here. So I do like that map effect overall for this kind of content. In regular arena, sure, let that wheel be as element wheel, but for this, I like it. The
I like
bonus,
it too. We've never seen anything like that either. I know light and dark are exempt from it, but they're already weak and strong against each other. They already kind of have that dynamic going on.
yep.
But could make them a little bit more opportune to use this week, at least against the elements.
Absolutely. And on that note, Thancred is one of the biggest bonus units. Venera is the other one. Obviously, you have the units that got the MA2s and MA3s this week with Helen of the Black Rose, Rain, and Flagbearer Glaciella. Good luck to anybody running any of these 50% bonus units. But I think at least a couple fun options here. This is where I keep doubting myself on what the best team of three is, because you also have the bonus vision cards, which are Venera's vision card, and you have the two Final Fantasy XIV vision cards that are the biggest bonus multiplier. You have the older 14 vision cards and a couple others as the lower one. This is one of those game modes, though, this week that I don't think you have to use every single bonus item. You just need to win. And so if that means dropping one of the vision cards into a altogether and maybe taking a lower bonus multiplier, I think that's a viable strategy. But I'm very interested to see how the evasion angle holds up here, because that's one of the places where in arena you can't really surprise anybody. People see exactly what you have for evade. And so maybe when you're farming your way up and you're climbing the ladder and you're picking who you want to hit, maybe you can get away with that evade angle to pick on teams that aren't ready to hit you. But when it comes to the end of the day, like when you use up all your attacks and whatever team is left standing there, if you're an evade team, the opposite is true, that you might leave yourself open to people that are hyper accurate and can gear for it. So I keep going in circles on what I think is actually the best combo here of what units I'm trying to think of using, particularly because the vision cards don't really overlap at all, at least the main three bonus ones.
Yeah, it is tough because at least the top finishers are going to find a way to not only use the 100% unit, but use both 100% vision cards, because that obviously you get the most points for doing that. They're going to have to find a way to win those matches, though. Evasion does seem like the most compelling, just because you can look at somebody's accuracy and have a good gauge on whether they can hit you. So I definitely agree, as a climbing strategy, that seems to be the best way. And then after that point, you're just probably, if you're wanting to play evade the whole time, you're going to have to sit around and wait for certain teams to pop up, you're not going to be able to bang out all your matches necessarily right away.
Yep.
So, you could do it that way.
Yeah, I know. I
Which
know.
I think
Oh yeah,
which to be fair, I think the top finishers, the top 10 and top 20 probably are doing that anyway. So
I would agree. Yeah, I'm going to use both. I think I've done some mocking today, but the mock teams that are out there right now aren't top tier teams. I'm sorry, guys. They're just not. So I am intrigued to see tomorrow what people come up with. I am probably going to start off with the evade angle. I went for now Venera and Riku, and me personally, I'm barely aiming for top 10. I mean top 100. I'll be happy if I crack top 100. I don't sweat that much about this game mode. I think it's fun, but like I'm not gonna spend all day tweaking. And the tough thing about this game mode is if you start off slow, you shoot yourself in the foot and you never catch up. So you have to start out of the gate strong and keep your foot on the pedal. And I just don't like keeping my foot on the pedal for 7 days straight.
yeah.
But I'm going to try Riku and Venera, and I've got my Shadow Links, Dark Shadow Links, up there too for just like a straight up mono Dagger evade team, and see how many people I can pick off with that.
I think it's going to be quite a few. Um, and I'm still like very curious to see how this like flip of the element wheel is going to play into that too, because normally you might look at somebody like Ashenmont to kill Venera, but he's not going to be as strong at doing that anymore. Probably still be pretty decent, but just because of how accurate he is, and but you're going to be wanting to look at a water unit to take out Venera, potentially.
Yep.
So, very, very interesting wrinkle on things, I think.
It is. I think the one. Yeah, no, it is. I have to. This is still like a mind fuck for me. I still have to like rethink it every time I say it, because the way it works typically is that you do 25% more damage to your weak element and take 25% less, whatever it is. But yeah, it's flipped. It's
Exactly.
awesome. It's so cool. But no, we'll keep going on
I
here.
think
Yeah,
last
okay.
time I made the top 100. I didn't go. I was the same. I didn't go super crazy for it, just because I don't the gear that comes with it. I think it's cool, and I like that they've implemented new gear for this. But I just think it's like a niche item, this monocle thing, and I haven't really seen anybody using it all that impressively. So I'll be happy to get it. Once I do get it to try it out. But that's about it. I'm not gonna go crazy for it.
Completely the same. It's a cool piece of gear, but I can totally wait 3 limited arenas to get it. I don't need to get it right now or even the next one. Very niche. Yeah.
It's like an interesting side grade to like an Alex ring potentially with for units that need some AP, but that's about it.
Nope, I agree. We also have Quick Pick returning though in this same dual mode conversation, and it's the same map. It's Snowy Mountains. Oh no, it's not. I'm sorry, it's a totally different map. Snowy Mountains is a very different map. Snowy Mountains 5, and you're getting a honeycomb barrier where it's a 20% effect from 2 to 5 panels. So pretty, yeah, 5 to 20% is the range that you'll be getting them. I like that. I mean, well, actually, I actually kind of don't like that. That does kind of hurt the missile teams just a smidge. That everyone gets that innate honeycomb from that range away, and they also threw in the sleep, stun, and blind nullification, which kind of kills the evade team, at least the stun angle, because that's a big thing for Venera. So in this quick pick, they're really kind of neutering some of the missile advantage and some of the evade advantage, just from the blind status element. Obviously, too, can kind of come into play either with Sadly in a Hypervade Earth team or even the Riku TMR, which has the blind effect on it. I don't know if I love that. I mean, I don't hate that, because obviously you want to let other units have their time to shine, but I don't think they've given enough time for missile and evade to really breathe, that they're now already introducing some like counterplay to it innately baked into the map. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, especially because this is for everyone. It's not limited to any specific element or job class. As far as I've seen, that's for everybody. So very very interesting. I'm glad that it is like a map wide effect and they're not singling out and cherry picking a certain job. I personally I don't like it when they do that. So that I think that at least from that standpoint, it is fair for everyone that everybody gets the same thing. For those missile units, I think that they take the most advantage of it. So I think that's the other way that you can look at it. They are farther away when they're
Right.
hitting than any other units. So for the most part, they're going to be getting that full 20% damage reduction.
Good point.
Um, so yeah, I like quick pick. Again, I don't go too crazy with it, but I know I do enjoy it for a few days when it comes around.
Absolutely. Yeah, quick pick might be one of my favorite dual modes. I prefer it to class match personally. I just like having the well, I'm also not a manual player. You can't manual quick pick. So if you like manual, you obviously would prefer class match. But because I do prioritize auto, I prefer quick pick because you have the optionality and a little bit of the mind game of that initial setup of which three units you're going to take. That I do like that agency, that it's not just rolling the dice and seeing what you get paired with. You have a little bit of input so that even if you get an unfavorable matchup, you can kind of shrug and be like, well, I picked the wrong thing. That's kind of on me.
Yeah.
Yep. And then the I think arguably maybe even the biggest news is the fact that Guild War is taking a pause and we're going back to limited Guild War, but not as we know it. From everything I've understood, we are immediately getting the 5-man Guild War implementation here. I know for JP they had some mock trials of it. I don't think they were officially recorded, but we're not getting that grace period. We're going right into it. And so it's been a while since I think we've talked about it. People might not even remember the intricacies of it, but the high level of it is you will make a team of 3 and it is cost limited. Obviously being limited, there's a hard cap on the cost of that party of 3. You're going to have 2 units that are essentially backfill units. The cost for them is irrelevant. It's only the cost of your starting 3 that matters. And once you have a unit that dies, as long as the team's alive, how can I say this? I don't think they immediately backfill in the same match.
No.
It's once you've cleared the team and the match is over, then they will backfill any deceased members that you killed on that enemy team. And so if you kill all 3, does it just populate the 2 of them? Is that how that
It
works?
does.
Okay.
From what I've seen in JP footage, that's how it works. Yeah. Um, I think that this is like the final like non-bugged version that JP actually got through successfully that we're getting. I would imagine that we're getting here. I hope so.
Yeah.
Because they had a few false starts there with this that really soured a lot of people on it over there, I think. But I think that people liked the limited aspect of it, where this is kind of a fun thing that they bring in every now and then. And I think that this shakes up the limited format a little bit. And despite our issues with the matchmaking, at least like the team building here and actually something different in the mode, I think is something to look forward to. So I'm looking forward to it from that standpoint.
Me too. I mean, I've always been on board for this change. I think this is a good middle ground that they've only applied it to limited as opposed to the permanent Guild War mode. I can see why at this stage in the game making that kind of change might really upset people's interaction with the game because you're completely changing the game mode that they've spend the most time on. So I'm very interested in this because there's not a ton on the line, but there is still some Visior on the line, and there's still some bragging rights depending upon what bracket you're put in. And assumedly, this will be the supremacy format down the line after a couple limit. I mean, I would think maybe not, but I love the X's and O's theory crafting of this. Of do you go, some kind of hybrid element team to try to cover bases? Do you go role based where you have a tank or a healer in the wings in that 4th or 5th slot that sure maybe they take out one unit on your first team, but then a support immediately comes in, can heal up the other teammates? Like there's so many fun ways to think about this that I think this is at the end of the day a fun mental exercise. But even just from a gameplay perspective, I like any kind of content where I can use more of my units. There's so many units in the game. The fact that now I can use 5 of them instead of 3 of them, I always like those opportunities. And this does not have the downside of the load times that we saw with the Grand Arena of the full 5v5. So again, it's like compromising on every level.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to see how the mock period for this is, if we can actually test how that works and those kind of look at the actual backup units. Hopefully that we'll have access to that. So we'll see on Wednesday when the patch drops.
Yep. No, absolutely. Okay, and that gets us to our hot take section, which I think is good timing. We're at that hour and 14 minutes, so not terribly late here, but just in time. And we have five, I think, good hot takes. Honestly, I think all of our hot takes are always really fun. The first hot take here, that the Assassin's Dagger, this is the reliquary weapon, the Assassin's Dagger is not a good item for the Dagger class. And let me just bring this up again to kind of refresh everyone's memory, because it might have been a little while since you've all used it. The Assassin's Dagger, 224 attack, 146 magic. The special effects for obviously accuracy and crit rate. The special effects are the 25 initial AP, slash attack 20, minus 6 hate. It does give you 8 AP upon a critical hit, and if you normal attack or basic attack someone, you have a reduced chance to inflict doom, so a 15% proc chance as opposed to the 25 or 40 or 67 you're used to. This hot take, though, the Assassin's Dagger not being a good item. Do you want to kick this one off, or do you want me to? Do you think this is a hot take, or is this true?
I think this one's a little bit hot for me. It's not my favorite, and I think I would probably put it on the weaker end of the spectrum in terms of reliquaries gear, but I think it's just a niche item. Like, I think there are cases where it can be good, depending on what you're trying to do. And the hate down is certainly an interesting angle, depending on the team setup, and it does affect your buffing, so that is a wrinkle you need to consider. But the crit angle, the AP, the hate down, there are like some use cases for it. I just think it's a niche item.
I would agree. I think this is a hot take. I think this is a good item for the class, albeit a niche one. And I think the minus hate is really the big distinguisher here, because to your point, it completely changes the buff order. That if you have a unit with negative hate, like if you took this dagger and put it on Riku, you had a team with Lucille would not buff Riku as a main priority with her limit break or whatever it may be. And so it does change that. Now, like for these two evade units or dagger units that we have currently, sure, this is probably not best for Venera, who I think's the dagger unit, and Riku's the ninja blade. Yeah, whatever it is. But I do still think this is a good item, because negative hate is not something you can readily get. So the fact that that is available for potential buff items, I know the Yoichi bow is a similar reliquary item that they also have a negative hate. And although these dagger units that were the limited ones that we have maybe don't love this one, at the same time, I don't hate it, because like right now this week, that team with Shadow Lynx that I'm using, Shadow Lynx is getting this dagger, and she's going to get the -6 hate, and my cost 50 MR unit is going to be the last priority to hit out of the other two. So like that's why it's not an awful item for this. It's not the best, but it's not awful.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep.
Got its uses.
It's a good one. This next one. Ooh, this is a fun one. ExDeath looks like a flop. Now, let me set some groundwork for this, if you don't mind. One of the big, because we haven't mentioned it at all tonight on the podcast, is the new JP unit, Maevia. We mentioned that there is a new unit, but we didn't really talk about her. And so she is an ice unit. She is a bow unit. But one of the biggest things about her is the fact that she has the, what is it, the unit? My God, where is it? It's the on-hit effect of increasing unit pen, decreasing unit res pen on hit. And so as a bow unit, she can apply this from a relatively long range, and both Shrek and ExDeath have magic penetration for days. And so this is actually one of the few ways that you can really mitigate their damage by reducing this kind of penetration, in addition to the fact that she has like the general unit res here, and they have the frostbite application and the pretty awesome crush ability here for some potential Jaden synergy. Although different classes, he certainly benefits from the decrease of ice res. Also has the dispel of follow-up attacks, so a lot of application there too. Halves their buffs upon hit if you're using this one. And even the limit break is a reduction of or re-raise removal. So even if you're using them in, say, like a Lucille team, I don't know how often that may be, but Lucille granting a re-raise, you could probably remove it before it gets sealed. So she also looks to be an exceptional Mont partner at the moment, based on what their synergy is. So that's kind of the context for this. That ExDeath was looking mighty strong like a week ago because of that vision card, and her introduction has some questions being raised. And so, all of that being said, is ExDeath a flop? I'll let you kick this one off if you want.
This is like a nuclear level take for me. And I think it was purposely made that way. But I think that he's got some legitimate threat against his team, which is with Shrek particularly, where Maevia is able to dominate Shrek in that lineup, and Maevia, frankly, can do very well against ExDeath because of those things that you highlighted. So there's like some legitimate counterplay to that team, which is a good thing. And that team is not going to be dominating everyone for forever. So he has plenty that is still going to be very good against the rest of the cast. Obviously, we've talked about him before. He's a very strong bruiser. He's got the all element resistance. He's got the strong unit attacks and penetrations with his vision card. So obviously the great TMR and all those things. It's just that I think that they finally are toning down the Shrek impact a little bit, which Jaden wasn't really quite able to do on his own. And with the bow unit, they're not as susceptible to line of sight like the gun units. So that is kind of her advantage over Jaden as well.
Yeah. No, I think this is a hot take. I don't think ExDeath is a flop. I think if you assumed everyone could pull all units and everyone could use any unit any time, sure, this actually might be true. If people could use 30 Maevia or 15 Maevias in a guild war, and have her max reincarnated like the new power creep, sure, maybe this would be a hot take. I think that vision card that it comes out with is so incredibly strong. I think Shrek still, Maevia aside, obviously still beats a huge array of things and is super versatile, that even him as a dark unit not having that element wheel play, I don't know how you could call him a flop even with the existence of a new potential character. There's still a lot to like, and at the end of the day, love it or hate it, one of the things that I am appreciating more and more about the 5th anniversary is the commander effects, that even if you pull a unit and they maybe fall out of meta, this commander effect doesn't. I love that we now have some extra residual value to a unit that used to be only the TMR was the only thing you could really get. Once a unit fell out of favor, you'd use their TMR in the future. Now you have this commander effect. This actually is like a pretty decent commander effect for Sword Warrior and Greatsword to give them that HP bulk, the AoE pen, and the blind res even. That to me also makes it so that he's not exactly a flop, because it's more than just the gameplay at this point too.
Great point. Yeah, I love I think we're finally starting to see the kind of fruition of the commander effects with kind of some of the ones that we've been seeing recently. And yeah, 100%, you get a little bit more value out of them. I still though think that there's going to be other ways to play this unit, and people are going to find creative ways to work him in, because really when you think about Maevia, it's more that Shrek is the one that really needs to worry about her. ExDeath can take a few shots from her, definitely, especially if he's got Mont in front kind of tanking for him. So I think that there's going to be other ways to play ExDeath, aside from using Shrek and kind of playing into that weakness.
If I could have some fun with the counter argument here, though, I do think Maevia does. Although you're right, it's obviously a Shrek counter. There's still a lot of things that we talked about. He's got re-raise on himself. She can remove re-raise on limit break. This is a 50% general barrier. That limit break is also a physical barrier break, if I recall, or one of them is. This will break a general barrier. You have the unit pen decrease that she gives. But this buff that he uses, the magic res pen, again, there's some timing on here, but one of her abilities can half or reduce the efficacy of a self buff. So technically, you could reduce how much magic res pen this technically is. So there's still like a couple of things here in the kit that I think she still does a couple things against him. It obviously is way more for Shrek, but I agree. He overall should still do pretty decently.
And he only has 40% unit res penetration, if I remember correctly, within his passive.
Yes, so that'll bring him down to 10. Like that's
And the
nothing.
interesting thing about Maevia is that hers is an on-hit effect, so you can stack that with somebody else that reduces it, like a Thancred, like a Nickel,
Yep.
and they've been slowly adding in those units that are able to debuff that. So you could bring him all the way down to 0, which is pretty crazy.
That's exceptional. Yeah, you're looking at 40% plus damage mitigation potentially. Yeah. All right, we got three more hot takes here. These hopefully, I think these will go a little bit quicker. This next one here. Status ailments have had pretty decent coverage in PvP, except for Petrify. It's time. Is this a hot take? Is it time to throw in Petrify in the PvP angle? Or is that a... Yeah.
I don't think this is way too hot for me, because this would be completely cancerous. Because that's an instant death, and there's no protection for it. There's really nothing other than like a trust stone that you can do against it. So I don't want to see that get more play in the game. Because to be honest, we've had it on Mustadio for ages, and it actually has got better with his upgrades. And yeah, it's too OP. We thought Curse was bad. That's just you're dead. You can't come back.
I agree. This is too hot of a take. To me, this is okay for PvE content, that they have Petrify as something to look out for against certain enemies. But for PvP, I can't think of a worse way to like lose your game. There's already so much randomness here. To now introduce the element of randomness for Petrify, that's another thing you can lose to. My God, that would be absolutely awful. And fun fact, although Mustadio has Petrify, do you remember the other unit that has it? I think there's one other unit off the top of my head that has the Petrify capability in their kit.
Was it I don't know, was it Fina or Dark Fina?
It is pretty positive. 10% chance to inflict Petrify.
Man, I pulled that out of my ass.
You did. This was a fun ability that we saw at one point. I remember being like, "Oh, that's interesting," and I swear to God, I think Vivi might have it. Am I misremember? Yeah, Vivi's got it too. Chance to inflict
Okay.
Petrify. Yep.
Yeah, there's a couple that have them on like the TP abilities, but again, that's like something you don't only ever see in manual play or in PvE if you're manually controlling it or something.
Yep.
Mustadio has like the only active ability that I can remember.
Right.
I don't know if anybody else does.
Yep. No, good stuff. All right, that gets us to the next hot take here, which I think will be a very topical one, obviously. Final Fantasy V was not the right collab choice here. We just got 10-2. Now we're here. We're getting Final Fantasy V. Is this true, or is this a hot take?
I don't know if I agree with this one. I think this is a little bit hot for me. I don't know if it's the first one that I personally would have wanted to see, just because. I mean, I like Gilgamesh; he's fine, but I don't really have any huge attachment to him. And even the game itself, like I think we talked about before, was, it was not originally released in the US. It only came out later, I think, like on the Game Boy and like through some of the remasters and re-releases. You couldn't, a lot of our age, like the older demographic, wasn't able to play this game for a very long time. So I don't know if it was, the most popular one, like outside of Japan. I do know in Japan it was like pretty popular. So, obviously that is the audience that they're mostly catering towards. So maybe it was right for them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this. I don't know how I feel about it. I really don't, because I think if you're prioritizing which collabs, I still think 16 should be a high priority collaboration for them. It's just such a modern game. They've been pushing marketing for it. There's no characters in the game, so you have none of this issue of like power crept units. You can literally start from scratch. So I think that's the way to go. Obviously, Final Fantasy 12 keeps coming up, particularly because it's part of the Evilise Alliance, as they call it. It's one of the games in that like style of universe that War of the Visions is like kind of a spiritually connected to because of the tactics connection. I think both of those are still like the like you know money making ones, but they technically just did a brand new game with 10-2. Although we don't think of it that way necessarily because we think of Final Fantasy 10. 10-2 is technically its own brand new collab. I do kind of wish that they had done 16 or 12 and let this one sit a little while because there is a little piece of me that does still want them to give the Final Fantasy characters a little bit of the tactics and Thancred treatment to really take some time and like don't just give me an MA3 for Bartz. Like give me some actual like relevant upgrades because I think that can help bring people in. Because again, as a content creator, I'm not going to sit here and tell people, "Hey guys, pull Bartz if you like them." It's terrible advice. I don't know how they can make money on new players coming into the game with everyone being like, "Don't pull them, they're bad." So I wish they would have let this sit for a little while longer to upgrade some older units. But honestly, not a bad choice. This is still a really great game, and I think the thing that makes you appreciate it more is the fact they introduced 2 units. It's not just Gilgamesh; it's also ExDeath. So I think that was
Yeah.
the right choice for them.
Yeah, multiple units and multiple cards in a rerun collaboration is not something that we've seen them do before. So that gives me some good hope for some of the future rerun collaborations, like a Final Fantasy 6 or a Final Fantasy 8, even 9. A lot of people are waiting for Kuja, but maybe we'll get Beatrix or one of the other like fan favorites in there too. But I think kind of the interesting thing that I've been seeing them do, like, we saw them, months ago, them say, we're going to put more focus on collaborations. And that was kind of one of their goals. And I think we're seeing that now, like pretty much every month, we're in a new collaboration. We went from tactics to X2 and then into 14. And now we're going into 5. And I'm sure that they're going to be getting another one, in not too long over in JP as well. So I think that's probably going to be the thing now. We're just going to have a monthly collab, or maybe at most like every 2 months. So I think we're going to be seeing a lot of Final Fantasy units this year.
I agree, and I prefer them to do the Final Fantasy collabs. As fun as it was to get Persona, I love that series, and as cool as the Dragon Quest units are, or whatever, I prefer them to stick with the Final Fantasy characters. That's the bread and butter of this fan base, but more so than anything, I have a lot of confidence that they have no problem bringing those units back for upgrades and reruns and events and whatever. It's the ones where they have contractual obligations, or can they do the rights to it, or do they have a specific voice actor that's outsourced that it's because it's not part of Square Enix's network that they have to go hire a voice actor that does Joker, and you know what I mean? Like there's so many potential logistical things with the non-Final Fantasy collabs that I'm okay if they never run a non-Final Fantasy collab again. Like I almost prefer that because we've seen even Nier took forever to get rerun and get upgrades. That if I have to wait that long for a certain like just don't do it.
And I think, with the way that they had done, collaborations in the past where it was really right around the anniversary times, like what did we have in the past? Maybe like 4 per year, like maybe 5
It was quarterly
over the course
basically.
of a year.
Yeah,
If we're going from like 5 to 6 tops in a year up to like 8 to 10, that's going to increase like the cycle of when those units get upgraded, which has, historically been one of the
slow.
biggest problems with those units, is that it took so long for them to get their upgrades that you felt like you were kind of sitting on a dead unit when we went through these upgrade cycles for the characters. So I think that this is a good direction for the game.
Absolutely. But that brings us to our fifth hot take, which is kind of topical to what we were just talking about. Maevia wasn't a good choice for the next JP unit. I'll let you start. Is this a hot take, or do you think this is true?
I've been personally, I've been waiting for this unit. I love this unit, so I'm I'm hyped for it. I'm a big ice player. I'm a big missile player. And obviously, I love Glaciella, and she's got all the Glaciella, MILF thing going on. So I'm all about it. I think it's a good choice.
This was my I think I agree with this. I love the character design, but there's so many other people in that flashback that I know also were still kind of waiting, like a young O, like a younger Miraga. Even if you're going with Wizette, I still think young Curry deserves his time to shine. The fact that Curry was relegated to an MR level unit, I think is still kind of
I personally, I think we're going to see him too, and I think he's going to be probably water to go with her. I think they're probably. I mean, their MO has been to release multiple job units, and Bo has nothing. Like they have Fina and they have Shadow Links. That's a terrible job.
What do you mean? We have the Bolt Veritas that you have been masterminding in the top 10 here. Guys, if you have not seen Howl run the Bolt Veritas, props to JB. We've been having a lot of fun with that unit in the last week.
Yeah, that was fun. But I think we're gonna see another one. Like I think they've been comboing these units to like build up the jobs. So and Curry has been kind of featured in that artwork of
He
the
was.
storyline. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him here in short order too.
No, I agree. I remember from the first prequel flashback, this was a really fun Easter egg for me to be like, oh wow, I'm trying to find the icon. Like this is a really fun unit that they've introduced. This is Glaciella's mom, but I never ever really thought to be like, oh man, I can't wait till she's a playable character because she's kind of just like small potatoes in the broad scheme of things. She's really like leaning heavily on the artwork, which is great. It is. But like I do tend to prefer characters that have some more lore impact, if you will, for like them being I hate your like Urel being in this game. Like that made no sense to me. It's this random person in the forest and they're just here. They exist. Like why?
Well,
Like
hopefully the storyline fleshes her out a little bit and makes her more compelling, and because it is a whole story event. So
right. They do tailor
um,
make some of the PvE stages.
hopefully the story is good and makes her more endearing or compelling.
Yeah, no, totally. I was trying to see here if I could find some of is this our team right here? Just can you see it on my screen? Our Gilgamesh team?
We don't run it in that slot order, but those are the units. Yeah.
Okay, whatever, we'll fall back. Either way, I was trying to bring up the Bolt Veritas stats for you guys, but I don't think I have a clear view of it on the fly. Um, but yeah, no, I agree. It'll be a great unit nonetheless. I am glad that it's not a fourth iteration of Elia or fifth iteration. I don't even know how many Elias we have at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, at
But
least three.
yeah. But nope, that is everything to cover. I mean, obviously, there's a lot coming out in the next couple of weeks with these upgrades, with the new units, with their vision cards. We have the people are still on the edge of their seat to see if we get a Lunar New Year unit still. I know they've gone away from that. We likely won't. And even if we do, they're probably bad because the last two have been absolute train wrecks. Um,
Yeah, I was just about to say that the last two have been our flops of the year on our year in review.
yep.
Resnick the Floppy and Oberon. So
Yep.
do people want to be fooled again?
They fooled me last year. I really thought Oberyn would do something, and
They did.
nah.
Yeah.
But regardless, good luck pulling tomorrow. A lot of stuff is going to be happening. Quick pick
Or Wednesday, right? Not
Wednesday.
tomorrow.
Shoot, Wednesday. I'm so excited for Gilgamesh. Losing track of my days. Yeah, the quick pick and new Guild War and new limited arena and tons. So, good luck, have fun, and we'll talk to